So welcome to another Is It Worth It from Precinct Omega, and we're looking at something a bit different today. I'm going to have to pull the camera back so I can fit it in, because it is, hold on, this. This is Angel Giraldez, Masterclass Volume 1 from the painter who does all of the painting for Corvus Belli's Infinity game. I just thought I would show you through it. As you can see, it's softback, nice glossy photo quality paper. Hang on, just going to show you there the contents page, so you can see it's well organized, laid out. He covers lots of the essentials, and I'm going to have a quick flick through and show you what I think. A little greetings from Angel. Sorry, I've only got one hand for this. I'm sorry, because I'm using the other hand to hold the camera for this review. I'm not very well set up. But as you can see, he shows us materials, some sort of basic introductory techniques that are repeated throughout the book, and then goes over some clear things. This is a page on washing. This is on spot highlighting. And then he looks at a number of different sort of textures and techniques, and then breaks it down into some specific models that he's painted and shows us the techniques he's used for those models. This is the cover model, the Oyoroi, with the pilot coming out. I've got to say, actually, now I think about it, this is a really good illustration of why I'm not a fan of that bootleg model. I don't mind a cheesecake model here and there, it's quite fun, but all the bootleg cheesecake models are a bit weird. Look at how this girl is smiling. Can you see there's no teeth? She's got this big wide smile with no teeth at all. Could it look more artificial? Anyway, moving on. Lovely 360 shot of the whole model. You really get an insight into what he's done to this miniature to make it look so impressive. And I'm a big fan of this model, both the miniature and on his paint job. Tariq Mansouri, he does the base. He looks at all the different levels. It's a really nice, not only a nice piece of painting, but a really well laid out step-by-step process on how the painting is done, all the way through to the end, looking at every detail, which I really appreciate. He does not stint, as you can see, on explaining how stuff is done. Can you see the little symbols? Yeah, up on the top left. We've either got a paintbrush to show he's been painting by hand, or an airbrush. There we go. You can see the airbrush down there on the bottom left to show the bits that he's doing with the airbrush. I quite like that technique there that he does. And then one by one he goes through different models. So gecko, and he's got liquid mask on there, which is a technique I'd never used before I read this book. Useful stuff. He is a bit short on actually looking at the freehand. As you can see, this gecko has a lot of freehand detail painted onto it, and one thing that it is a bit weak on is actually going over how he goes about applying freehand painting. You're not going to learn a great deal. Something else that's in here a lot are loads of custom busts that Angel had made for him. I'm not that into the busts. There's a bit on bases here for this pano cutter. Another bust. And I'm just going to flick through, another bust. Don't want to avoid you actually having to buy this book for yourself if you want it. This is a really good take on this dog face here. And then we get a shot of Scarface, Cordelia. Very nice. And that's more or less the end. I've kind of very quick run through, but it is worth saying that this is not the only thing that you buy for your money. As well as this, you also get this lovely lady. This is the new version of Joan of Arc. She is exclusive to purchases of the Masterclass book. As you can see, it's the usual high standard of sculpting and posing that we expect from Corvus Belli's range these days. This one isn't quite finished. I haven't painted that scabbard yet, but you can get the impression of what I did with this using my own technique, I should say. I've not painted this using the techniques that I read about in Angel's book. But nevertheless, a really beautiful miniature. It does come with the book, so needs to be considered alongside it when it comes to deciding if it's worth it. But what you really want to see is whether his techniques are any good. So let me show you this, because this is the miniature I painted using Angel's techniques, a combination of airbrush and hand painting. So you can see this spot highlighting effect that he does. And the thing that really stood out for me is how much of it there is. It's not like the zenithal highlighting approach that you can see here. This transition from light to dark with the very fine hand highlight at the edge is the classic zenithal, but Angel's has spot highlighting. We've got there on the knee, up here on the shoulder pad. Of course, I did the blue glow effect on the plasma pistol because you kind of got to. But there's spot highlighting all over the place. Here on the back of his foot, here at the bottom of his armor, and here on both of the spheres of his backpack. Even here, lines across the banner on the back and the same on the front. And the point is, there's a lot of this. We put light with the airbrush all over the miniature with the Angel technique. I was pretty pleased with the outcome. I'm pretty glad about this model, which I've now sold to somebody. But there is a bit of a downside, and I want to introduce it. That's this. This is my airbrush. This is about as cheap as airbrushes get. You can pick up this for 20, 22, 25 pounds. As you can see, it's got a separate reservoir that screws into the side, and it's a cheap and cheerful starter airbrush. It's the kind of thing I would expect most hobbyists to begin with, and frankly, it's not that good. I've been using it a couple of years now. I reckon I know its ups and downs, but Angel's techniques, you will see, involve these babies, the Evolution AL Plus and the Infinity CR Plus, which are rather more expensive than mine. And as well, it includes this compressor, again a more advanced, high-tech and more expensive version than what I is using. Now, I did get this result. I'm very pleased with it, but the fact is that my airbrush couldn't deliver the precision and smoothness that a more expensive airbrush can. So a lot of work was done by hand around areas like this, having to touch up where my airbrush put down too much paint, or the consistency of the paint was not well consistent, and I had to touch it up by hand. So a lot of time and effort actually went into fixing the airbrush work on this. And another problem that I ran up against, we talked about liquid mask. Now, I used it a lot on this model, and I had a problem right down here. I'm sorry, that's a terrible angle, hold on. Right in there between his legs, I put liquid mask, and it absolutely would not come out. None of the techniques that Angel recommended that I found online, nothing would get it out of there. So, although liquid mask has its place, it is not a cure for all ills, and all in all, I'm still learning. However, I hope you'll agree that it did turn out still a pretty nice miniature in a distinctive style. All in all then, let's ask the crucial question. Is Angel Giraldez Masterclass Volume 1 plus Joan of Arc version, well, I suppose she's 3.0 now, are they together worth it? And I'd say overall, there are flaws, but yes, they are.